What's going on, everyone? It's Loaded Ridley, and we're doing another reaction on the historical aspect of things for video reactions. I know it sounded kind of weird. I kind of messed that up. But I'm not going to do a redo. We're reacting today to wannabe states of the United States. Wannabe states of the United States. So other states want to become newer states, or do states want to break up and become other states? I don't know. We're going to find out right now. This video should only be like 13 minutes long, but with commentary and everything. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get into it. Please like, subscribe, and please check out my other videos. Let's bring it up right now. Make it big, and let's go. Wannabe states of the United States.
Have you ever asked yourself why we have one state named after a president, but half a dozen states named after kings and queens of other countries? Well, that wasn't the original plan. There have been quite a few attempts to name states after the founding.
So I didn't know the states that were highlighted were named after kings and queens of other places. A lot of the states, especially along the East Coast, are named after places in England or Great Britain. Usually they're called new. To represent the other city in Great Britain, like Jersey. So Jersey is in Great Britain or England, and there's a New Jersey in the United States. There's a York in Great Britain, but there's a New York in the United States. So that's kind of weird. Maybe York and Jersey are named after kings or queens from Great Britain before? I don't know. You let me know in the comments. Maybe he's going to announce it in the video.
Fathers that ended up failing.
Don't do that. What the fuck? You don't want to leave it in there.
So let's start at the beginning. Before Vermont became the 14th state, there were at least two other places trying really hard to get that coveted spot. First, let's talk about this bit of land, which at the time was part of North Carolina. Since they were on the other side of the Appalachian Mountains, the government of North Carolina had a really hard time governing the area. So the people there decided to form their own potential state named Frankland. They petitioned for state.
So if you look with the two states that were highlighted, I'll do it with the mouse right now. So you got North Carolina right here, and then you have Tennessee right here. So they're saying this place was called Frankland. I've never heard of that before. Frankland, I don't know why it'd be called Frankland, but that's pretty interesting to know. Let's see what he has to say about it.
Time governing the area. So the people there decided to form their own potential state named Frankland. They petitioned for statehood in 1785, but were rejected because North Carolina didn't really feel like giving up the land just yet. So they changed their name to Franklin after the at the time still living Benjamin Franklin and asked him to help with getting recognized. Franklin was famously full of himself, but his response was easily one of the most nicely worded, "I know what you're trying to do and it's not going to work" dismissals ever put to paper. "I am sensible to the honor which your excellency and your council thereby do me, but being in Europe when your state was formed, I am too little acquainted with the circumstances to be able to offer you anything just now that may be of importance." The state of Franklin eventually gave up their attempt and were absorbed into the territory that became Tennessee in 1796. But that doesn't stop the people who live there from slapping State of Franklin on businesses and tourist spots.
You'll see this a lot in the United States, especially a lot of places that try and justify like their statehood. This is just funny though. Like, whenever I go back to the U.S. I don't live in the U.S. right now, but whenever I go back to the U.S., I want to check this out. The state of Franklin Bank. So you're telling me that territory between North Carolina and Tennessee, that's called Franklin right now, still considers himself a separate state? Come on, guys. Come on.
To this day. At the time, this region, which was controlled by Virginia and Pennsylvania, was also on the other side of the Appalachians and was difficult to govern from their respective capitals, and as a result was likewise trying to become the 14th state, known as West Sylvania. But promotion of the independence movement was made illegal and an act of treason in 1782, which technically made it punishable by death. The reasoning behind that was that that land belonged to the Native Americans, and creating a state there might start a war, which the US obviously didn't want. So it remained part of Virginia, at least until the Civil War. Again, it was on the other side of the Appalachians, so geography helped separate the people. And when Virginia broke away from the US to join the Confederacy, West Sylvania broke away from Virginia to stay in the Union. This happened literally weeks after the Civil War started, so the delegates of the area got together to decide on a new constitution and, perhaps more importantly, what to name this new state. I have an idea. Let's call it Kanawha. What?
Kanawha.
Why are you putting so much emphasis on the H? I don't know, it just sounds better. The fact that you're doing that is the main reason we're not going to call it that. Let's call it Columbia. The capital is already the District of Columbia. We can't call it that. How
Washington,
about New
DC.
Virginia? Are you seriously? We might as well just go back to calling it West Sylvania. And so West Virginia was born. As you'll soon realize, America, like Britain, is not very creative when it comes.
If that's true, how West Virginia got its name, to be honest, I'm not surprised. Yeah, not at all. It's if you look at West Virginia today, though, you would kind of be curious and be like, West Virginia was part of the Union, the Northern States, back during the Civil War. Yeah, West Virginia was, because technically, based off of what he just said, they seceded from Virginia when Virginia claimed seceded from the Union under the Confederacy. So, yeah, that's pretty weird. But they're just like, yeah, we're not just going to call ourselves all these other weird names or New Virginia. We'll just go, since we're west of Virginia, we'll be West Virginia. Okay, guys. West Virginia.
To the naming. Oftentimes we don't even change it from whatever it was before, like Florida. Florida was originally a Spanish colony and means the land of flowers. But because of the expansion of the United States, many Americans came to settle in the area. In 1799, an American banded together with the local Seminole and Muskogee Indians to form the short-lived state of Muskogee. It's worth noting that the Indian tribe it was named after was spelled with a C, not a K, but whatever. It lasted all of 4 years before it was destroyed. But thanks to that, combined with the ever-expanding United States, the territory became too expensive for the Spanish to maintain, so they ceded the territory to the US in 1810, at which point the area was divided into East and West Florida. Anyway, it was admitted.
You can't make this up. And the last video that I did too, you saw like the history of the United States in 10 minutes. We've been through a lot as a country, as other countries have been as well. And it's kind of weird because people will like go back and be like, there's been countries that were named literally like East and West or whatever, North and South, whatever. We did that in the United States too. Look at us. East Florida, West Florida. Like, if you brought that up today, people would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Never heard of it. It's history. It's happened. People wanted to split certain states up. It obviously didn't occur, but I mean, the thought was there, and it always has been there. It's weird to think about.
It as the full state of Florida in 1845. But the story doesn't end there. Several times since then, including as recently as 2008 and 2014, the counties in southern Florida have proposed resolutions to split the state in half. What would they name these two partitions? North and South Florida. See what I mean?
Why get so basic? North and South Florida. You can't name it something different? Like the state of Miami for South Florida? And then like Northern Florida, like the Florida-Georgia line state? I don't know. It's so crazy just to think, like, we'll just name it simply North Florida, South Florida. Come on. Put some more thought into that. That's probably why it's never got voted into position, because people are like, I don't want to be called North Florida. Like, we're already Florida. Why name it something that's similar to it? It makes no fucking difference. I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe you guys get it. Let me know in the comments.
Split the state in half. What would they name these two partitions? North and South Florida. See what I mean? Trust me, this is a recurring theme. So let's move on to a state I brought up in my last video on the topic of states. Texas. As I mentioned before, Texas likes to brag that they used to be an independent republic and that they can secede whenever they want. They can't, but they can break themselves up into 5 states if they ever felt like it.
I'm not gonna
They've
talk
never
about
made
Texas.
plans to break up into that many, but they have proposed breaking up into 2. The first plan was drawn up in 1870 after the Civil War and would divide Texas along the San Antonio River. Don't worry, they were a little more creative with the names this time. They wanted to call this part Lincoln and this part Jefferson. You'd think that a state that fought on the losing side of the
I said I was going to talk about Texas. I'm not going to talk about Texas in a bad way. But see how they made the two names different if they're going to split the state? Lincoln and Jefferson. Come on. If you would have proposed that today, it might pass. I mean, everything else going on, it might pass. I'm just saying, that shit might pass today.
a little more creative with the names this time. They wanted to call this part Lincoln and this part Jefferson. You'd think that a state that fought on the losing side of the Civil War would get a little salty over the idea of naming themselves Lincoln. And you'd be right. So they changed the name to Matagorda, which is Spanish for thick bush. Grow up.
He said it in the video. I'm not going to say it. If you're a Texan and you're watching this, you were almost called that. It's going to go back too, just so you can hear it again.
And you'd be right. So they changed the name to Matagorda, which is Spanish for thick bush. Grow up. The plan was reintroduced in 1906, then again in 1915, and then again in 1921. It made it to Congress once or twice, but obviously never passed. Then in 1945, after World War II, this area of northern Texas and the Oklahoma Panhandle...
Amarillo?
Hey, wait, why does Oklahoma have a panhandle anyway? I'll get to that later, but anyway,
I've
they were
driven
tired
through
of
there
being
before.
ignored by Texas and Oklahoma and drafted a proposal to secede and form the state of... Wait, actually take a second to think of a name for this proposed state on your own.
Amarillo.
Trust me, it's just as unoriginal as you expect it to be. Okay, you got it? Did you guess Texlahoma? Because I'm guessing you were pretty close, maybe only one letter off. Obviously that didn't happen either, but
Texlahoma? And I'm not talking about Texas right now. I'm talking about that portion that would have left Texas to become part of Oklahoma, the Panhandle, Texlahoma. Just think about that. Texlahoma. Texlahoma. Did you really want that? No. No. Amarillo would have been a good name. Texlahoma.
just as unoriginal as you expect it to be. Okay, you got it? Did you guess Texlahoma? Because I'm guessing you were pretty close, maybe only one letter off. Obviously that didn't happen either, but this isn't the first time they proposed breaking up Oklahoma. Back when it was called the Indian Territory, they were seriously considering making this
When the
area a
Cherokees
legitimate
lived there.
Indian-controlled
Or were
state named
forced there, actually.
Sequoia. The move
Trail of
lasted
Tears.
until 1907, when the US Congress
do a video on
predictably
that.
didn't let them create an Indian-only state and instead created Oklahoma. In 1939, during the Great Depression, many Plains Indian tribes got together with the mostly Republican ranchers in protest of FDR's New Deal, with those crazy Democratic ideas and plans to build infrastructure, and submitted a proposal to break away and form the state of Absaroka.
That's where
They
the
even had their
Dakotas
own
are.
license plates and their own Miss Absaroka 19...
Absaroka. Absaroka. Like, can you... The names that you've seen in this video so far, can you imagine them being in actual existence today? Like, seeing license plates, Absaroka. I'm sure people said the same thing about Pennsylvania or fucking Nevada. Like, what the fuck is a Nevada? What is a Pennsylvania? You know? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. I just think it's fucking weird. A lot of the names in the United States that, from what I know, most of them on the East Coast originated from Great Britain. When you get out towards the West Coast, you have the Spanish background. Up north and central, you have a lot of the Native American French flavor. So, I mean, the United States as a whole, just as a nation, is just conglomerated from different nations that formed it. Like, this is what we are, you know? And I just wanted to say that. But if you look at every state's name, they've come from something that has brought influence to the creation of the United States over time. And I think that's pretty interesting to think. I don't think a lot of other countries can say that. I'm almost guaranteed a lot of other countries can't say that.
Infrastructure, and submitted a proposal to break away and form the state of Absaroka. They even had their own license plates and their own Miss Absaroka 1939.
Miss Absolutely.
At University of Maryland Global Campus, the value is the credits that you don't have to take again.
The plan was abandoned shortly afterwards, especially once World War II began. Let's jump back in time a bit to the 1840s, when the Rockies were mostly inhabited by Mormons. After the Mexican-American War, when Texas became a state and California was in the process, the Mormons decided they better stake their claim and sent someone to Washington. Hello, we're the Mormons, and we would like to create the state of Deseret. That's a pretty big area you're claiming.
Deseret. I know the Mormons ended up settling in Utah. If you look up Utah, you know a lot of the Mormons in the United States live in Utah. Deseret, though? Come on. Deseret. I know it's all desert, but Deseret? I mean, it sounds like dessert. Like Deseret, dessert, desert. We can do better. We have done better. Utah, Nevada, California, and Arizona, and New Mexico, and Colorado. We've done better.
There. Yes, well, you just admitted Texas, which is pretty big, and California is pretty big too. Texas is special, and California has gold.
Texas
what do you
is
have?
special.
Polygamy? Yeah, get rid of that and we'll talk. So California became a state, and Deseret did not. Instead, they were lumped into the Utah Territory as part of the Missouri Compromise of 1850, which I'll talk about later. But as part of the compromise, California joined the Union as a free state, and they had to pinky promise to send one pro-slavery and one anti-slavery senator to Congress, which caused all sorts of problems. So right away, there was already a plan to break California up into two states, with the northern half being named Shasta and the southern half named Colorado after the
Whoa! So I did not know that they were thinking about splitting the state of California to, well, what you know as NorCal now as Shasta and SoCal as Colorado, which obviously the name ended up being the state of Colorado, which is located right here. But that is interesting to know. I didn't know that. Shasta and Colorado. Shasta kind of sounds like, like the green sticky stuff, Snoop Dogg stuff, Colorado, Southern Cal, that doesn't fit. SoCal, NorCal, I mean, the rivalry is still there. Everybody knows if you ever lived in California, you've been to California, you know about it. But being named Shasta in Colorado definitely would not fit today at all.
Ruddy Colorado River. They later decided to keep the northern half named California, which by the way comes from the Spanish word for land of the caliph, as in the Islamic Caliphate. Just putting that out there. Anyway, once the Civil War started, this plan was obviously dropped, which is a good thing because the Colorado River no longer drains into the Pacific Ocean in California. Or anywhere else for that matter. So they would have named themselves after a river that dries up in their state. But since then, there have been several plans to break up California, including one in 2013 that actually gained some traction, appropriately named the Six Californias Plan. It would have created the state of Jefferson, Silicon Valley, North California, Central California, West California, and South California. But in 1859, at the same time
some better names, guys. Come on.
Half of itself Colorado, the gold miners over here hoped to make this territory into the state of Jefferson. But the economy was based almost entirely on gold mining, which brought in all the drunkards and criminals. And since this area was populated by Mormons, who didn't like the crime associated with gold and still hadn't given up polygamy,
so that's how you got
that whole area was cut out of the proposed state. Around the same time, they were considering naming this state, or this state, Lincoln. It seems like the names Lincoln and Jefferson go hand in hand, but that obviously didn't happen, so they had to come up with a new name. Well, we can't call this Jefferson if we don't also have a Lincoln, so what should we call it? How about Idaho? What does that mean? Absolutely nothing. I just made it up. What? Get out of here with that nonsense. Nobody would be stupid enough to use a made-up name. Seriously, the word Idaho is completely made up. The people of Idaho like to claim that it means salmon eater in Comanche, which is true, but the Comanche lived down here and the guy who came up with the name didn't know that. It's the same as if you slammed your head on your keyboard and later found out that
I think that has a lot to do with translations and speaking different languages, especially the interactions between the Native Americans and the settlers or the Americans that were living there at the time. Um, I think they made up a lot of words to define or translate to what it meant in Native American, whatever, like Cherokee or Iroquois or Comanche or any other tribe, whatever they spoke. They usually refer to certain words as actions, like that guy is blah, 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 and that guy is blah, 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 like to translate it that way. Call somebody in Idaho, he's in Idaho, so he's a salmon eater. He eats salmon, Idaho. Like, and you're going to name a state based off of that. Like, I don't know, guys. This is weird. I didn't know all this. Is new to me.
Like to claim that it means salmon eater in Comanche, which is true, but the Comanche lived down here and the guy who came up with the name didn't know that. It's the same as if you slammed your head on your keyboard and later found out that the garble actually means something in a language you've never heard of. Hey, remember when California was gonna name themselves after that one river? Yeah, well that river actually starts here, so how about that? So boom, Colorado was born. But we're still not
Colorado's
done.
a
The
nice
Pacific
state.
Northwest
Very
used
beautiful.
to be jointly occupied by the US and Great Britain. In 1846, they signed a treaty officially breaking the area up and establishing the mostly straight border between the US and Canada. Originally, the area was going to be called the Columbia Territory after Christopher Columbus, which is why the area north of the
Who didn't even discover the United States. Remember in the last video where Christopher Columbus discovered, not even night, all the way down here, Hispaniola, which is present-day Dominican Republic and Haiti. Just remember that. He discovered the New World, technically, but not the United States of America. Hispaniola. Remember that.
between the US and Canada. Originally, the area was going to be called the Columbia Territory after Christopher Columbus, which is why the area north of the border is now called British Columbia. But they wanted to avoid any confusion with the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., which stands for the District of Columbia. So they called it Washington Territory. Anyway, the original plan was to break up the area into 3 states: Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln, because these are the 3 presidents anyone is allowed to admire. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican.
one of the capitals there
if you
is
say
called
that you
Lincoln,
admire
actually,
any of these 3, you'll get a round of applause. Which is partly why these 3, along with Teddy Roosevelt, were put on Mount Rushmore. But since the area had also been called Oregon Country when it was under US and British control, when Jefferson applied for statehood in 1848, they adopted the name Oregon. Since then, there have been a few attempts to break away Southern Oregon and Northern California to reform Jefferson, all the way up until 2013. It was even part of the 6 Californias plan. But anyway, because the eastern half of what would have become Lincoln was full of gold, and again, nobody wanted those filthy gold-digging criminals in their state, that area was given to Idaho, and the rest became the state of Washington in 1889. But when this was all still in the works, when the US was still on their Manifest Destiny kick, they hoped to control the entire Pacific coast. So they bought Alaska from Russia, an area 2/3 the size of the Louisiana Purchase, for about half the price. Look, here's the actual check that we used to buy.
Alaska is a huge state. Huge state. Like, I know going back now that the Russians were probably like looking back and be like, why did we do that? Like, I know for a fact they want Alaska back, and they wish that they never sold it to us. But we own it now, and Alaska is huge. Even though a majority of it is like frozen, and there's seriously times throughout the year where the sunlight does not appear because it's just dark out, which is fucking weird. Or maybe it's the opposite, where it's just sunlight. I forget. Let me know in the comments below. I think in Alaska, there's like a lot of daylight that occurs or darkness that occurs. Let me know what it actually is, because I forget. Yeah.
Alaska. That's right, we're the old ladies at the grocery store paying by check. Anyway, the hope was that by controlling territory both north and south of Canada, Britain would just give up trying to control British Columbia and hand it over. Obviously, that didn't happen. But funny enough, since the entire Pacific Northwest is inhabited by both former British and former American settlers, there's a small independence movement that would unite the area into
Cascadia.
an independent republic known as Cascadia. Probably not going to happen, but look, they even have their own flag. But that's not all.
Nice.
There are currently several movements within the United States to break up current states. For a long time now, New York City and Long Island have thought about separating and creating the state.
That will never fucking happen. So I'll let you guys know, I live in the vicinity of that. No fucking way that's gonna happen. None.
Of Long Island. That's usually because the area is more economically active and they're tired of sending tax dollars upstate. Likewise, the people of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, called Yoopers after the abbreviation UP, consider
Yoopers.
themselves so different from the rest of Michigan
They're
that they've tried to
practically
break away
Canadian.
and create the state of Superior. There have been several
By the
other
Lake
smaller, less
Superior.
significant independence movements, most notably the Conch Republic in Key West, Florida, which is mostly just a joke and is
I didn't mean to pause it right there. I know like the video's almost over, but like guys, those northern states, it's almost like if you wanted to change territorial boundaries and everything like that, you can almost consider people that are considered American and have American citizenship to be considered Canadian, or Canadians to be considered Americans. That is crazy. I mean, and I say like it's crazy. There are actually places along the border where there is not a fence, and literally people's backyards separate the country's boundary between the Canada and the United States. You can literally walk across your backyard into your next door neighbor's house and be in Canada, and he can walk to your backyard and be in the United States. That is crazy to think about. Like, I don't know, there's probably other places in the world where it's like that, but just like in the United States, like with Mexico, people would never think of that. Like, you're not going to, like my backyard, oh, there's Mexico right there. Like, people don't think about it like that, but in Canada, our border there, it is like that in a lot of places, and it's pretty insane to think about, I think, at least. And I'm Canadian, in a way.
Superior. There have been several other smaller, less significant independence movements, most notably the Conch Republic in Key West, Florida, which is mostly just a joke and is never seriously considered breaking away. It's mostly just a tourist thing. So there you have it. Combined with my last two videos, this is the entire history of the United States. So we can finally move on to... Wait, you said you were going to talk about the Missouri Compromise and why Oklahoma has a panhandle. Oh, Okay, fine. One more video on the history and geography of the United States, and then we're moving on to talk about other countries, okay? Not all of my viewers are American. Yeah, but most of them are. Okay, anyway, at least for now, you know better. Hey guys, if you enjoyed that video or you learned something...
Well, I wanted to know. I mean, come on. I wanted to know what it was. Oh, ginger. Wow, guys, that was pretty interesting to know. There are so many states and so many border areas that are almost transformed or voted into becoming their own separate states within the United States. And I think a lot of people knew, or especially living in the United States, I knew that, especially in recent years, since 2013. Even Colorado put up a legislation to become North and South Colorado in the recent years. California, obviously, they put in a proposition to vote to Northern California, Southern California, blah, blah, blah. Like, it happens all the time, but you know what? All those voting processes still have to go to the United States Congress and through the whole United States government, voting process that goes on there. And it would be very, very, very hard to justify voting approvals towards either a secession or the creation of multiple states or a new state based off of current territorial boundaries in the United States. I know it sounds like that is really difficult to think about. I mean, Britain just left the European Union, so it must be kind of easy to do. You would think that, but in the United States, everyone is, we're like all together. Like, even though we fit different, party views and are from different areas, being considered and thinking like an American today, I don't think a lot of people want to break up like what it is actually, like as the United States. And that's just my 2 cents on it. I mean, people have their own opinions, and in the future things may change. I'm sure things will change in the future, because if it didn't change in the future, that just means we're not advancing as a race, or a people overall. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video reaction. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. And please give a like and subscribe if you guys enjoy that and want to see more on these new type of videos that I'm doing. So yeah, I appreciate you guys watching, and see you guys later. Bye.